Here we go. All right. All right, now you gotta bop your head a little bit or something. You just gotta just He just look. He got his. I see his legs moving.
They are moving. My legs are moving, but I'm not a dancer.
You're not a dancer.
I'm not a
Okay,
dancer.
all right. Now you can't tell me now. Back in the day, like we probably around. I don't know. You may be a little younger than I am. I don't know.
I'm 40. I'm 45.
Okay, well we're close in age. You can't tell me back in the early '80s, '90s, you wasn't sitting in the car just kind of.
Oh, he's doing all kinds of
Well, I don't even say what you was doing in the car. I'm just saying. I know you was just kind of bobbing with the John. Was it Bon Jovi and all that?
No, it was Bon Jovi. Like I had some of those first. I had several Bon Jovi tapes. He was my favorite growing up.
Yeah.
And then like I had a buddy in high school that had like he had speakers in the back of his truck, and we would get in there and just turn it up as loud as turn whatever we had in the tape deck up as loud. It was the bass craze back then. You just wanted to make it thump as loud as you could.
Exactly.
There wasn't words, there wasn't anything to it. You're just sitting there thumping, going down the street. That's what we used to do all the time.
Hey, and I know, we used to take the speaker from the house and put it in the car because we just want that bass just to drop. Just to drop and just shatter every window.
Make it as loud as you could. People knew you were coming.
Exactly. All right. Well, welcome to the 11th hour. It's your boy Pastor Mike, aka the Michael Davis, also known as 90s number 5. And I want to welcome you all to the 11th hour. Today we're going to be talking about our youth in sports, and so I want to welcome Coach Voss to the 11th hour. How you doing?
I'm good, Mike. How you been?
I'm good. We just kind of started talking about with music because, that's just kind of what we do. We love to talk about music. So, I want to jump right into this thing. So, Coach, I just tell me your title and what you kind of do over there at my alma mater.
So I am the I'm the head boys coach at Riverdale High School. This is my 7th year over there, and I've been in the county for almost. I've been in the county for over 20 years now as a non-faculty and as a faculty coach, and then I also teach driver's ed. So I got two. I got a fun job. Like I really do. My work day is a lot of fun because you get in the car. To me, you teach kids. We always talk about what you're going to use in high school and what you're not, but driving is one of the most important things you can do. Because it's one of those things where everybody's going to do it at some point.
Right.
I don't care what else you do. You may not use math the rest of your life, but
that's true.
Or you may not do English, whatever it is. But I know this: you're going to get behind the wheel of a car, and you better know what you're doing. And so that's how I kind of look at it, and I enjoy my job.
Now I know I didn't take driver's ed when I was in high school because fortunately or unfortunately I had driving instructors at home. So I know I have some questions, but since I didn't know you did driver's ed, I didn't know you did that.
So there's a lot you talk about. Like I learned at home too. Now I did take driver's ed in school, but I had Coach DeJarn, our basketball coach at Columbia Academy then, and I think we drove one time and that was it because I already had my license when I took it. So I had been driving for a while. And so you'd be surprised now, like used to, I know when I was in high school, I turned 16 that day. I'm going to get my license. And when I turned 15 that day, we went and got my permit. Because it was like, that was a huge deal. And that's what you wanted to do. There's your sign of independence. And you'd be amazed now at how many kids get into my class that are 15 and 16 years old and have never been behind the wheel of a vehicle.
Wow.
And so it just shows you how some times have changed. It's just not as important to people now as what it used to be.
It's not.
And some of that may be because of the internet and everything else. You can kind of, you can sit on your couch at the house and play games with with guys online. You don't have to go anywhere. You still kind of feel like the kids today still kind of feel like they're hanging out with people. Whereas back in our day, you had to freaking load up in the car and you had to, you had to go meet somebody somewhere.
Right. You had to go to the block to hang out. Well, I got one at home. 17. And, I told him, I said, man, look, we getting licensed. Like we gonna quit playing. He's like, oh, well, Dad, I really ain't trying to get my license. I said, yes, you are. Like, I'm gonna help you get them. Like, that, like you said, that's part of growing up. Like you have to have some independence. Like, dude, I ain't taking you everywhere you want to go no more. Like you need to learn to drive so you can take yourself.
No, it's a big part. My daughter, she turns 14 this year in August, and you know, when I was 14, I had, because I grew up on a farm, like I had driven a little bit already at that age, because hauling hay in the field, like your parents are like, hey, you get behind the get in the truck and steer it and make sure we stay straight for a little bit. So I had done some stuff then. So to me, she's about that age where one of these days we're going to go back to my mom's house. And we're going to get on the farm and we're going to drive around a little bit and start teaching her how to do some things behind the wheel, so that she just has, because I don't want her to have no experience once she gets that permit, because she's going to want to get out on the road and start driving.
Now, we don't have a farm, but we got a huge parking lot that I put my kids in, so I get them started there. All right, so we're going to get into these questions. So, Coach, tell me, how did you get into the field of coaching in basketball? Where did that love of the game come from for you?
I've just always been involved in sports.
Okay.
When I was, you started later. Now there's leagues that started at 3 years old. Well, I had two brothers that were, I'm 45. My middle brother is 44. And my youngest brother is 43. Like we're all just, we're all right there together.
Okay.
And so I may be a year off on those two. I know I'm 45. They may be they may be 43 and 42, but either way, we're all right there close together.
Okay.
And so we're always doing things. We were always doing things to compete against each other. I can remember when we were growing up, one of the very first things we did was we would have a football, and we had a hallway downstairs. That was basically our playroom, and we would literally sit there and play tackle football in the room, just all day as kids.
Right.
We had a little Nerf basketball goal down there, like, and so we did that. And I mean, we did that probably until we did that until we were teens. But we were just always competing against each other and always playing. And so obviously, back then, league started a little bit later. Maybe I was 7 when I started playing in a T-ball league, and a rec basketball league. And then, back then it was T-ball at 7. Now it's coach pitch. I mean, that's how far ahead we've gotten.
Right.
And then I played in some rec league soccer. And like I said, I don't remember all the ages, but we started somewhere around there.
Okay.
And then when I got into junior high, I was at Columbia Academy, which is a small private school. I graduated with 50 kids in my class.
Wow.
So
that's small.
It is.
That's small.
But when I was in middle school, I played football, basketball, played baseball, still did a little bit of soccer here and there. And then when I got to high school, I played football for 4 years. I played basketball for 3. I didn't play as a senior. And then I played baseball for my first 2 years. And I played soccer for my last 2, because we got a high school team then. That was the 1994 was the first year we had a soccer team at Columbia Academy. So it was my opportunity to play. So it had just been a part of me my whole life. And then after I graduated, I took a year off, because I took a year off. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated.
Okay.
No clue. So I went to Columbia State, which was 10 minutes from the house, just to get some general ed credits and kind of try to figure out, all right, where do I fit in? Like, what do I want to do?
Right.
And one of the things that I did during that time was I talked to Coach DeJarnett over at Columbia Academy, where I graduated from. He had just been promoted to the head boys basketball coach. And I kept stats for him for a year. And I'd done the same thing as a senior, but I kind of wanted to just stay around. I really wasn't I wasn't coaching. I wasn't on the floor during practice. I wasn't really I was just really being there on game nights.
Okay.
But I love being around it. And so the next year, I had kind of figured out what I thought I wanted to do, and I went to Lipscomb.
Okay.
And there, just by happenstance, I got hooked up with Coach Meyer, who Don Meyer is one of the winningest all-time coaches
Right.
in college basketball.
Yeah.
And I was a student assistant coach there for 3 years.
That had to be exciting.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was. I've got so many lifelong friends from that time. And that was really where I decided, all right, I want to go into coaching. This is what I want to do.
Cool.
And so it was like we traveled with the team. We were in every practice. My first year at Lipscomb, as a student assistant, I filmed games. We learned kind of that's the situation where, yeah, you're a manager. You learn the grunt work of the game and what you have to do. So I filmed games that year. Then I think the next two, you know how it is. It's so long ago. Everybody runs together.
You've slept a couple times.
Yeah,
since then.
I've slept a bunch since then. I did the scorebook for our games.
Okay.
And kept the official stats at the table.
Right. Okay.
And so it was that was one of the best learning experiences I've ever had. And Coach Meyer was such a huge influence as far as getting me into it. Now, the one thing that I kind of figured out about almost at the end of my career there at Lipscomb, that I wanted to coach in high school, but my problem was I didn't get my teaching certificate. So I literally had to go back to school, and I spent another 3 years in school.
Wow. That's passion.
Just getting my teaching certificate. Well, I took a year off because I just hit that point where I was burnt out and done with classes with school, and I had to take a little bit of time off. But so I worked regular jobs, was a non-faculty coach for Coach Wortman at Laverne. I'd finished up my. I actually ended up when I was at Lipscomb my last year there. They reinstated the soccer team, so I was actually a member of the first version of this men's soccer team that they had.
So you actually played?
I played.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I played. Now I wasn't a good player.
Okay. Okay. I was going to ask.
No,
I wasn't. Some time off.
I was our third string goalie basically.
Okay.
So I backed up a kid named Brian Ayers, who was really good. His brother was our captain and our midfielder, and we had a bunch of pretty good players that had been there for a little bit. And so we had a real successful, for a first year program. We had a pretty successful year.
Well, that's good.
But I got to start one game, and that was an 8-1 loss to Birmingham Southern, who was the number 1 or 2 team in the country at the time. I mean, it was just
sounds brutal. That was a brutal day. 8-1.
It was a pelting, man. It was, and it was a day where they could do no wrong, and obviously I wasn't nearly as good as Brian in the goal. But we had a lot. It was just one of those days where we had a lot of issues that day.
Okay.
And so it was that's one of those, that's a humbling experience.
Right.
When you get to it. I'll never forget, there's about 4 guys behind the goal that were just heckling the crap out of me. And I wanted to just turn around and tell them to shut up and go on. But it's just, it's part of sports, and it was part of everything. But Lipscomb was a great experience for me. And then, like I said, when I go back and get my teaching degree, I'm working with Coach Wortman at Laverne for 4 years there. So just early life, I just, I don't know how I really figured out I wanted to do it. It's just one of those things where you look up and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. Right. Like this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And I just went and did it. The other thing that I did during that time was I coached a 6th grade girls team, and I figured out I'll never ever coach girls. Like it just.
Well, wait a minute. No, what's wrong? That's wasn't your cup of tea. You found out that
my temperament, the way that I am, just I relate to I relate to guys better than I do with girls.
Okay.
There's it's just personality sometimes.
Right.
And that's really what it is. Like sometimes I struggle connecting with my daughters because I just there's some things I don't understand. Why are you what's going on today? The things that I didn't adapt well to with that. And I just like I said, it wasn't a bad experience.
Right.
It was one of those where I know, hey, I'm not going to do this. I want to be on the guy's side of it.
Right, right. Well, first of all, let me say I really appreciate you that experience is really valuable because that, like you said, at the end of the day, it was a lot that you learn, a lot that you still hold on to.
Yeah.
I'm sure in a lot of those values you use with your team. So I'm glad you at Riverdale because that's where I went to high school. I'm going to put that plug out there. That's where I went to school, and we had a lot of good times back in the day when I was there. So, but how did you eventually end up at Riverdale? How did you end up being the coach there?
So it's really kind of it's really a funny story, or not funny. It's just a unique story.
Okay.
So when I was at Laverne with Coach Wortman, obviously I wasn't teaching. I was getting my teaching degree.
Right.
Well, as soon as I got my teaching degree, I got, and my goal the whole time was to be a head coach at some point. So after I got my teaching degree, something happened at Blackman. Coach Kevin Woodson had gotten out in 2004, and they hired Kyle Turnham. Well, there was an opportunity there because at the time I only had I had my PE degree. So
Okay.
in 2004 I was coming back to Laverne because I didn't have a teaching job yet. I was substitute teaching, and just kind of I was making things work. You know how it is, right? In college, you're still living as cheap as you possibly can.
Right.
So
Ramen noodles, man.
I mean,
them up.
ramen noodles and paying at that time like $300 a month in rent. Like I kind of, I had a situation where I could substitute and survive.
Right.
But about September, Coach Turnham called me or he called Coach Wortman and he said, "Look, I've got a teaching spot open." He was going to move to driver's ed, and get his certification in driver's ed, which would leave a PE opening. And so I went and was Kyle's assistant for 6 years there at Blackman.
Okay.
Then Kyle resigned in 2012. Maybe 2011, I can't remember. And I interviewed for the job, obviously, because I wanted it.
Right.
Didn't get it. I had actually at one point while I was at Blackman after my first year, I had been named as the head coach at Copper Basin, Tennessee. Which, if you don't know where Copper Basin, Tennessee is, nobody does.
No, I've never heard of
it. It's right on the corner of the state. It's in like if you turn right, you go to North Carolina, you turn left, you're in Georgia, and then the school is actually on the Tennessee side of it. So I mean, it's right there in the corner of the state.
What a place to start, though.
Well, yeah, it would have been, but literally, I took the job. I told the team, and 2 days later, the principal down there called me and he said, "Hey, like I've got some bad news. We screwed up some paperwork. Like we're going to actually have to keep the guy that's here, and we don't have a teaching spot."
Wow.
So that fell through. Well, at that point, that because I'm sitting there getting ready to move. It's a 3.5 hour drive.
Right.
I'm going to move 3.5 hours away to one of the poorest communities in the state just because I want a shot.
Right.
I wanted to make my own program, and so that falls through, and I think, well, there's a reason. Like there's going to be another opportunity somewhere. And so every year interview somewhere and then Coach Turnham resigns and I interview for the job. Well, Coach Wortman had decided that he because of some family issues, he was moving back to the mid-state.
Okay.
Well, and Blackman I knew it was going to be a good job. Our freshman team had gone 15-1 the 2 years before, and then the year that Coach Turnham resigned, we were 17-1.
Wow.
So, and I had coached both of those. I knew we were going to be good.
Right.
And so, Coach Wortman comes in and he takes the job. And so I'm basically his lead assistant there for the next 5 years. Again, still interviewing, still trying to get different jobs, different things. And so I sit there and I keep finishing second. Like I keep getting told, hey, if this guy doesn't take the job,
It's for you.
then somebody's gonna offer me. And of
Okay.
course everybody takes the job.
Right.
So and so then we sit there, and I've been working for Workman. At this point I've worked my tail off for 17 years, or at this point 11 years at Blackman, another 4, so 15 years.
Wow.
I've worked to try and get a head job, and it's not happening. And in the meantime, once Coach Workman got there, we had a lot of success.
Right.
My last 4 years there, we went to 4 state tournaments, won the state championship in
Wow.
2014, and made the semis in 2015. And this whole time, again, I keep not getting opportunities, and I'm just working and working and working, and don't know what else I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually made my mind up after that season. I had said, if it doesn't happen this year, I'm done.
Okay.
Like I'm out. I'm getting out of coaching. I'm going into something else. Because I was just, you work so hard for something, and so
Right.
hard for a dream, and for whatever reason, like you just keep working, and it doesn't come to fruition. There's frustration.
Right.
And I wasn't frustrated with Workman. I was frustrated what I was frustrated with was I worked my tail off. I deserved an opportunity. I felt like I deserved opportunities over other guys who were getting opportunities in front of me,
Right.
just because of how I'd worked. And like it's frustrating. And so I'd made my mind up that I was done. Well, that fall, or sorry, that spring, after basketball season is over with, Coach Woodson, who was the head coach at Riverdale at the time,
Okay.
he resigned and stepped away. And so I said, all right, I'm going to interview for this and see what happens. So I interview. I go into Mr. Nolan's office, and literally we just sit there and we talk for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't ask me a single basketball question.
Okay.
Asked me if I thought I would be comfortable, because the teaching spot that was going to be open was driver's ed, because he had to hire a girls basketball coach too.
Okay.
And he goes, the girls basketball coach is going to teach PE, boys is going to teach driver's ed. And I said, well, if I got to get that, if I got to go get a certificate, I'll go get the certificate. Like,
Right.
yeah, that's not a big deal. But like, didn't ask me one basketball question, didn't really ask me one teaching question besides that. Like, we just sat and talked. People
Right.
were in and out of the office the whole time, just talking to him. And I spent 20 minutes there, and I don't really know what's going on.
Right.
And so he looks at me finally, and he goes, all right, coach, I got to run to a central office. I'll be in touch at some point. And I'm just sitting there. I'm just sitting there thinking, God, what is going on? Well, in the meantime, while I was talking to him,
Mm-hmm.
Coach Hibden, who was our girls coach at Blackman at the time, they'd won back-to-back state championships. Crystal Dangerfield was coming back as a great player. He'd gone in and he had resigned because he was taking the Hewitt McConnell job in Georgia.
Okay.
And didn't know it. So I get out of the interview, and I've got a phone call from our athletic director at the time over at Blackman. He says, hey, you need to get back over here now. Like, we need to have a conversation.
Right.
And so I go back over there, and basically he tells me, girls coaches resign. If you want it, you can have it.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. Well, in the meantime, before I got back over to Blackman, Mr. Nolan had called me too and told me, hey, like, job's yours. If you want it, it's yours. So I went from being on the point of being done and out to all of a sudden I've got what I think is two
jobs,
really, really good job offers.
Right.
And so then I kind of had to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And again, it goes back to the end of the day. Me and you were talking a little bit earlier about I had a little bit of a dabble coaching girls basketball when I was in college, and I just knew that wasn't for me. Plus, I wanted to go build my own program.
Right.
And The Blackman job was something that Chad had come in. He came in my second year at Blackman, and he worked so hard and got that thing going. And at the end of the day, like, I knew it. You sit there, you're just building on top of what somebody else has done,
Right.
and I wanted to go build my own thing.
Do your own stuff.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what led me to Riverdale,
That's
and it,
great.
it, it was like, it was a chaotic time getting there, but and I don't know why things went the way that they did. All I know is this: it was very obviously what was the best thing for me, and it's one of the
Right.
best things to happen to me. So that's a long story to just tell you how I got there, but it's the journey. It's part of it.
Well, and it's part of the thing that I know that you probably use as a tool with your kids is because that's one thing I love about. I tell everybody, well, at least those that I talk to about sports, is that's what I loved about Kobe Bryant. Is that he always talked about the process of
Yeah.
playing basketball, because basketball was easy, but it's the process. And so you're just telling us about the process of getting to coaching. I mean, 11, 15 years. I mean, it really
Yeah.
took you to get to the head job. And you wanted to quit, but you didn't. So you kept pushing. And I know we're men of God, and so that's how God works. Sometimes it's just like, are you really into this thing? Once you're ready to give up, He just opens up that door for you.
Yeah, it's amazing just how it kind of worked out. And like I said, it's been great. And I've been through, I knew when I took the job, Mr. Nolan wasn't going to be there for very long.
Right.
He had, like, he was upfront with that, and he retired after my second year. Then we had Mr. Nance for 3 years, and then Miss Blair has come in, and
Okay.
she's been fantastic to work
Fantastic.
with. Like, I've had three really good principals to work with. So I've been real fortunate with that too. But it's just, for whatever reason, that this is where I got led at the time, and I absolutely love where I'm at. I love what I'm doing, and the wins and losses, they come and go, but
Right.
the kids that I'm around right now are great kids, and I've had a bunch of great kids come through the program, and so it's been a blessing to me for sure.
Well, I'm glad you kind of transitioned to that, because that's kind of what we're gonna go into next. Because as a head coach, you run into a lot of kids, and you see a lot of kids coming from different backgrounds and from different homes and different situations. And it's frustrating enough just to be a coach, but now with the adding the COVID and all the things that are going on with that. So how have you been able to keep your team together, in the midst of all of this?
It's hard. It's real hard because just even before COVID, the mentality over the last over the last 5-6 years has changed.
Okay.
It's gone from being about team and trying to get better as a team to it's a whole lot more about the individual now.
Yes.
And so that's something that to me is really frustrating, because guys see something that they don't like, or things just don't go their way. Instead of sitting there and continuing to work and trying to make things better, they just bounce.
Right.
And it's a trickle down. Everybody talks about the transfer portal in college now.
Mhm.
There's one in high school too, basically. And it's not listed on a website anywhere, but
Right.
there's people shopping around all the time.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And that's part of that's part of the frustration of it, because you just don't know from year to year. Like, you can think, hey, this guy played 25 minutes a game for us last year. Like,
Mhm.
he's locked into his role. He's going to come back and start. He's done this and this and this,
Right.
and then they bounce because they don't like something. And
Right.
it's just that part of it is frustrating.
Mhm.
Like I said, that was before COVID. Now you throw COVID on top of it, and there's a bunch of uncertainty about a lot of things. And at first, we lost a whole spring season,
Right.
and we lost a state tournament because of the uncertainty of what this was. And I got it. I got it sometime last year, I think it was. And it's weird. Like, you lose your sense of taste. I don't know if you ever had it or
I
not, but
have. I
but
have.
like, all of a sudden you bite into a pizza and you're like, I don't taste anything. Like,
Right.
this doesn't make any sense. It's weird.
Yeah.
But and yeah, people are dying from it. There's all kinds of issues that come with it.
Right.
But what it created was it created such fear and such uncertainty about what was going on,
Right.
and like a lot of people kind of quit living for a little bit with it, and they got scared to do things. I mean, I've had players that because of it, you saw players last year opt out and basically not play
Right.
because of because of the fear and uncertainty. Well, obviously, as we've kind of gone along, you see that, hey, this there's some things we can do to protect ourselves, but you can't just quit living,
Right.
which is kind of what, which is almost what was preached early on the outset was, hey, we got to quit living, like
Yeah, shut it down.
we got to shut everything down for a
Yeah.
little bit. That's the only way to stop this. Well, at the end of the day, it's a virus. There's not stopping it. There's doing some things that we can to try and help control it, but
Right.
like the new variant, if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. And it just, that part is what it is. But it's led to a lot of it has led to a lot of issues because
Right.
the online, the virtual year last year that we had, where kids are in virtual school, kids aren't coming to in-person classes, they're doing everything online. And then my guy, like, for instance, my guys would show up at 3:30 every day for practice,
Okay.
but they would come from the house, they would come from the house.
Right.
um
So I'm sure
those,
showing up for practice from the house was just like,
yeah, so you got, now you got to worry about, all right, kids getting to class,
right.
kids getting to practice on time. You got to worry about, like, I had one player that he came to practice every day. Well, he would log out of his class 15 minutes early from seventh period so that he could be here on time. It led to a lot of issues.
Okay.
We had some guys the student failures last year were up 90% because some people just, if they're not in the classroom where you can actually physically see them and talk to them, number one, you don't know if they got internet at the house or
Right.
a way to log in.
Right.
And then, like, if they're not there for you to physically sit down and talk to them, they're not going to do any work.
Oh no.
And
No, no.
that's the way, that's just the way that some kids are these days. And so those are the issues we had. We had a high failure rate. Um, it just, like, virtual learning did not work. If you're
No.
self motivated, if you want to, like, that's one thing. But what we had was we didn't have a bunch of kids that wanted to; they were forced to.
Right.
And
Right.
when they're forced to, as well as I do, they're not going to
They're not
do it
gonna
if
do
they
it.
don't want to do it.
Exactly.
And so that was one of the big issues that we ran into was kids just not doing their work. Failure rate was up
High.
quite a bit. It was
Yeah.
very high. So now how do we bounce back from that?
Right.
And that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out now is from last year to this year. All right, what do we need to do different? What do we need to do better to help these kids out?
And that's one of the things that I think that we didn't think about is that when we forced these, well, I shouldn't say forced. Well, I guess they were kind of forced into this position to have to be at home and have to kind of shut down and get, I'm gonna say for sure they got lazy because I got two of them at home that got really, really lazy. Because they was like, well, Dan, I don't have to do anything. Like, I don't have to go to school. There's no sports. There's nothing to do. I'm just chilling. So, and trying to get them back into that routine has been really tough. I'm gonna just say for my two, it's been kind of tough for them to kind of get back into full-time school, full-time sports, and having that mentality of have to do both at the same time. So it's been kind of tough for them. So I'm glad you kind of mentioned that. Excuse me, because I know I've always felt like this is that eventually I feel like eventually they're going to start paying our high school players. I just feel like they eventually are, especially maybe the seniors, because like you said, it's not a book out there, but we know that these kids are being recruited to all these schools. We know that they're doing that. And so eventually I feel that's where it's going. So as a coach, now I'm sitting in the stands and I'm enjoying my daughter's game. I'm watching my son play football, my daughter play basketball, and I'm hearing these parents just go bananas, like sitting right beside me. And I'm like, well, why ain't you coaching? Like, if you know all the plays how do you handle parents, especially the parents of the players that may be obnoxious or do a little bit too much? How do you handle that as a coach?
You just ignore it until they're, like, if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, I'll address it. But really and truthfully, like, you have to learn how to tune things out and how to
Okay.
ignore stuff, because if you don't, you're never, number one, you're never going to please everybody.
Right.
Like, that's the first thing. And it doesn't matter what you are, like, a head basketball coach is never going to please everybody. Um, our assistant principals make phone calls to parents every day. You know, we got 4 really good assistant principals in our
Okay.
building. They call a parent every day, and guess what? Those parents aren't always pleased with what they're hearing. So you're not going to please them. And then I know, like, Miss Blair fields literally 30, 40 phone calls a day, and she gets tons of emails just about different things going on. You have to, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand you're never going to please everybody.
Right.
And the biggest thing that you talk to your kids about is, look, let's concentrate on what's going on the floor. Let's make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
Let's make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do off the floor as well. Because that's that's gonna help you be successful on the floor. And then, like I said, you just tune it out.
Tune it out.
You've got to, you've got to have, you've almost got to have blinders on and be just focused on what you're doing in the moment, to make sure that you're doing it to the best of your ability.
Thick skin.
Yeah, because if you start listening to everything else, like, it'll get to you. Like,
Right.
it just, it wears on you.
Like it did Penny,
can.
right? In Memphis when he went off on,
Yeah,
on the reporters.
yeah. Somebody, Miss King actually sent that to me yesterday. I hadn't seen it until
Oh,
then,
okay.
and yeah, he went off, and you know, you got to answer the questions that are asked of you, but
Right.
at the same time, like, you know, you got a job to do. You just got to tune some things out.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it just is, because if you don't, you end up being miserable. And you shouldn't be miserable in this job, because it doesn't matter what you do. Like, best thing about my job is I get to go around and I get to hang around. We've got 21, 22 kids in our program right now. And they're great kids. And I love being around them every day.
Well,
Like,
that's
I
great.
really do. And you get to try to influence these guys to be better, what you want to do is you want to teach them to be better citizens. You want to teach them to be men, because at some point they're going to be the ones that are leading this thing. Like,
Right.
they're going to be in charge.
Right.
And they're going to be the ones making decisions, whether it's for their family, for work, for whatever it is. And what you want to try to do is with my 20 whatever guys we've got, I just want to hopefully be a great role model so that they can see, hey, um, times got tough, but this is what we did. We just kind of continue to work, and hopefully what it does is it makes them better men and better leaders for the future.
Right. So I got two really good. Well, I feel like they good questions, but we'll see. Well, because you kind of mentioned it a little bit, so can you just kind of talk about what's the overall vision and goal that you have with the team and your coaches? Like, what is it that you really want them to know that you're trying to? Because how long you been at Riverdale now?
This is year 7.
Year 7. So, what's the overall goal vision that you have for the team? When if my son comes to your team, what is it that you try to share with him and the coach to say, this is what we're trying to build. This is the culture we're trying to build here at Riverdale. What is it that they really understand about you and your coaching and what you're trying to put together there?
Like, so again, it goes back to, you're trying to build men.
Okay.
You're trying to teach them how to be leaders, how to be better men in the community, how to be eventually, they're going to be fathers.
Right. Okay.
They're going to be husbands. Uh, so you want to be an example for that, and
Okay.
try to help give them the tools that they need to be successful in that. And again, be leaders in the community. And you get to do it through a unique, special way, because not everybody is good enough to play
Right.
sports in high school. I mean, that's just, it's a great opportunity to kind of do that. And then the other thing that I want my guys to know, whether whether it's somebody that played for me, 15 years ago at Blackman, or whether it's one of my guys now, is one of the things that I want them to know is that no matter what else is going on, you got parents that love you, but you also got coaches that love you.
Right. Okay.
Because it's got to be based on that, because they have to know and understand, and I'm a quiet guy, like I am.
Right.
I don't have just, like, I have friends, but I don't have, I don't have a huge inner circle. I I keep my real close friends to a really tight to a really small tight group.
Okay.
And that's just me. That's the way I've always been. Um, but like I said, I want the guys to understand that I love them. And I want them to hopefully see that, hey, like at the end of the day, coach may be getting on me about this, but the one thing that they have to know is they have to know that you care about them, and
Okay.
they have to know that at the end of the day, what you're trying to do in the best interest of them. Is it's not about me.
Hmm.
It's not about our coaches. It's about trying to do what's best for them. Now,
Right.
at the same time, you can't just sacrifice the team. You've got to do what's best for the team as well.
Right.
And there's times where that means, hey, something's got to change with a kid. But if they know that you love them, like that's step one. Because some of these kids, um, like some of these kids, I've had a couple kids in my program. Uh, I've got great family groups right now, but
Hmm.
I've had some kids in the past that they go home and there's nobody there.
Wow.
It's just they're basically just living on their own. And they've had parents that were just not involved, so they all need somebody to love them.
Right.
Like I said, I've got a really really good group right now who we got a bunch of parents that love their kids. They're all involved. But that's not the case for everybody.
Right.
And so those guys need to know that, hey, um, I I can count on somebody at least. I had a kid a couple years ago that it got really close to the point where he was going to come live with me,
Wow.
just because,
Really?
yeah, just because of the situations at home.
Okay.
Like me and my wife had discussed it, and we had talked about it, and we had a place set aside where he was going to come stay with us until he got it done with high school.
Oh, that's great.
Just because, because he had nothing else.
Right.
And so again, you just want them to know that you love them, because that sometimes that's all they need.
And then you can't, and and I know, like, you're talking about is that at the end of the day, I think that's kind of like the whole vision that we want, is that they're going to be fathers and husbands, and you want them to be the best that they could be in that area too, because everybody's not going to make it. They dream about it, they want it, but I think when they get to that point when they finally realize, hey, this is going to take a lot of work. I don't know if I really want to do this or not. And even if it doesn't, like you said, it's like, you know it's like, how do some guys make it and some don't? It's like, this dude is a better player than he is, but he makes it, but the one who's a better player don't. So I know I'm trying to run through, man. This, like, we could talk for like 3-4 more hours. I know we can't
Oh,
do that. But what is the overall thing that you want parents and players to say after they've played for you? What is it that you want them to take away as a parent and as a player that you would hope they would have? What would they say about playing for Coach Voss after spending time with you as a parent?
well, obviously you want everybody to have a good experience.
Right.
And not everybody's gonna have one. But because again, when you get down to where you're competing and playing, um, you want everybody to have a good experience, but not everybody feels the same way about people. I'll never forget. I almost we had talked about earlier about I played football for 4 years. Well, I
Right.
almost didn't play again after my freshman year because I had such a I didn't have a great experience my first year. I didn't. Um, in fact, when school got back in, or when summer workout started, my sophomore year, I wasn't going originally, and the reason being was because I hadn't I didn't click with our previous coach. We got a new coach between my freshman and sophomore year, but I'd had to me, I had had such a bad experience
Hmm.
earlier that I didn't want to go back. And then obviously you get away from it a little bit and you start thinking, you're like, I miss it. I need to go back. Like I need to give this another shot. And then, I went and played for Coach Loss for 2 years and then Coach Bennett. And I wasn't a great football player, but
Okay.
I had a great experience.
Right.
Um, and that's what I want guys to have is I want them to have a great experience. I don't want them to look back on this and it be like a bad taste in their mouth. I want them to feel good about what they've done. I want them to be proud that they were a part of our program, and I want them to stand out as far as character in the school,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually to be leaders in the community. Um, now, that doesn't always happen, but that's what you want. You just
Right.
want you want them to feel good about what they've done, because at the end of the day, it's high school athletics, and you're only going to get you only have 4 years to have a chance to do this. So
Right.
you better make the most of 4 years. You've got 30 years to work. You got 4 years to do this, and you
Right.
want to make it as good and as special for these kids as you can.
And if they don't come out saying Warriors fired up, like we gonna get rid of them anyway. Like you got to have that burning passion, like because my wife is a Warrior too. We both went to Riverdale, so and my wife even still know the song. Like she still sings the song and all of that, and and it's rough. It's tough for me when we're playing y'all because my kids go to Stewart's Creek, and when we play y'all, I'm like, which side of the gym or the field I'm gonna sit on. But I just love Riverdale, and I appreciate you being there. And so, the couple of times I've been able to come out there and speak to the kids, I know your passion, I know your heart. So, and you are, man, you hit the nail on the head, my brother. You are a quiet man, like you're like the quiet storm. You know what I'm saying? You come with it though. The kids love you, they respect you, they know what you want, and so they play hard for you.
Well, I appreciate it, because that ultimately is the goal. And the one thing that I do talk to the kids about, it's not always, if they've got a relationship with you, yeah, they're going to play harder for you. But
Right.
but the one thing that I think sometimes we lose these days is, and we've talked about this a bunch, because we've got our roster. I have one senior, I have two juniors on the roster, and then everybody else is a sophomore or
Wow.
freshman. So I mean, we are young.
Yeah.
And the one thing that we're talking to them about a little bit, um, we watched a Ray Lewis. Coach Dre brought a Ray Lewis video in the other day, and
Mm.
it says, efforts between you and you. And that's one of the things, like, if I have a relationship with them, will they play harder for me? Hopefully. But at the end of the day, we're trying to teach kids to just play harder for themselves,
Mm.
not in a selfish way,
Right.
but like, you have to understand that the one thing that you have to have is you have to have great effort. And if you have great effort, everything else at some point will work its way out.
Right.
But that's the first thing that you got to have. Um, and so hopefully by, again, if they won't play for me, great. But the big thing is they got to want to play for each other, and play for themselves. And if they'll do that, uh, again, it leads to a special time. They'll all, in 20 years, uh, we'll have reunions with different teams. I mean, we're getting really close to having a 10-year reunion over at Blackman with our state tournament,
Mm-hmm.
our state tournament teams. And you know, the thing is, like, you won't remember just you don't remember the tough times. Like, you use them as a lesson, but you always remember the bus rides. And
Oh yeah.
there's always something that happens in practice, like that just, it's funny, you can't help it, it just does. Like, those are the things you remember.
Right.
um and so, in 20 years, hopefully my guys will come back, and they'll remember some of that too.
They have great stories, like you said, great stories,
Oh,
great
that's
stories.
the thing. We had about 3 or 4 years ago. We had a reunion. It was the first reunion that had been had for the first guys team that had made the state tournament from Riverdale.
Okay.
Up until we made it 4 years ago, it was the only team that had made the state tournament from Riverdale. And those guys, we put them in what we normally use as the hospitality room for that night, and fed them dinner, and just let them hang out. And some of the stories that came out of there were just fantastic. And
Wow.
what was so fun to watch was Coach Hopkins was there, Coach Palmer was there. Just watching those guys interact and talk to each other and laughing and having a good time when they hadn't had an opportunity to do it in since basically they had all graduated and gone their separate ways. It
Right.
was so fun to watch and so special. And hopefully that's what, here when we have our reunions with my kids, hopefully that's what we'll do.
Oh, most definitely. It'll come out. So I'm gonna ask you one fun question real quick. You up to a fun question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. What is one thing you would like people to know about you that nobody knows?
Uh, God, I really don't know. Like usually when I tell people that I played soccer in high school and college, like they have a hard time believing it
Well, I mean, that
because
is kind of hard to believe,
they
but
look at me now and they're like, "There's no way you played soccer," and I did, and I wasn't like I wasn't terrible. I wasn't a great player, but I wasn't
hey,
terrible
well, that
either.
8-1 kind of let us know
Oh
kind of way.
no, yeah, no, that was a
You were like the
bad
water boy that came in and like, we need to use you today.
that was a bad. That's about what it was. That was a bad night. Um, but I don't, I don't know.
Now you got now listen, now you're gonna have to get a little personal now. I mean, I ain't trying to, for you to expose your whole life, but what like just something about you that maybe we just don't know. Something it could be just, like for me, I give you a thing like for me, man, I love watching like old movies, like
oh
old movies.
my
Just
my. So you say that was funny is last night I went and normally my wife beats me to bed by a bunch because I'm a night person. Like
okay,
I'll stay up until even on a school night, I'm up until 11:30, 12 o'clock. Like it's the way I'm wired. And I'll wake up at 6:30, get ready to go to work. Um, but like I love and I love old movies. When I say old movies, like 90s, like movies that I was growing up with, 90s
okay,
movies. Like I will watch them on Netflix. Like last night, I beat my wife to bed, so I went in there and I turned the TV on, and uh, clicked on. I was on Netflix and I clicked on Robin Hood, the Kevin Costner
oh
Robin
yeah,
Hood,
Robin
which is
Hood,
a
yeah,
fantastic movie. And so I'll do things like that. I still have one of the things probably people don't know. I still have my comic books from high school
really.
and early college. Yeah, they're all sitting upstairs. My wife hates them. They're all sitting in our they're sitting in our bonus room upstairs.
Now, do you still read them, or they just collectors now?
So well, those are really just kind of collectors now. So I've got you know how it is. You can get everything digital now.
Oh yeah,
And so I do have I've got a digital subscription basically to Marvel. And so like one of the things that I've really enjoyed is when I was growing up, I read almost all the Marvel comics, and then
right,
I love Batman. And so obviously you get the Batman movie early. But all the Marvel cinematic movies
right.
up until we still haven't gone to see Spider-Man. If I get a chance, me and my daughters and my wife will go see
Went to
that.
go see that. It's a good
Um,
movie. You need to check it
I
out.
I I bet it's great, but we would go to all those movies when they came out. Like within the first 4 or 5 days, we're seeing them, and it just like it's so neat to I don't know if you remember it, but when we were growing up, there was the Incredible Hulk movies and the Incredible Hulk series.
Right.
Uh, like with Lou Ferrigno, like that
Oh
was
yeah.
that was what you got. And
Exactly.
there was like if you watch those movies and go back and look, they had a knockoff on Daredevil and a knockoff on Thor and a couple of movies. Like
Right.
it was different. And you watch the graphics of it now, and you're like, God, this is really bad. This,
Yeah.
but this was what passed for really really good in the early 80s. And now
Right.
you watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. I could sit there in the summer and I could start at Iron Man and go all the way through
Oh yeah, I
at some
could too.
point. Like each those movies are just so they're so good and they're so well done. And so it's fun to see the heroes and the things that I grew up reading,
Right.
because literally every Thursday, uh, after I got my license, every Thursday I'm going to the comic book store, and
Wow.
I'm going to get the new editions of
No, it
whatever
is.
came out. And I'd go home and I'd have a stack 5 or 6 books high, and I would go through all of them
Oh, that's
that
great.
night. And so it's just neat to see what I grew up on, the heroes that in your mind and in your imagination you see. All of a sudden now they're for real on the big screen, and the movies are great. And so that's what that I don't know. Maybe that's the inner workings of me, but
Well, you
I
sound like you
love
may
that
be a
stuff.
comic book guy. I don't want to say the N word, the N word.
Oh, I'm a nerd.
Comic book nerd. But
I'm a nerd.
that's cool. That's cool. Okay, last word you want to give to kids and families that trying to get into basketball. What's your final word for those kids that are really wanting to play and their families?
If you really want to play, Jane, my son is going to be 3 here soon, and it's too early to get him in a league or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. But like basketball is the one thing. If I'm sitting in the living room watching a basketball game on TV, like he'll actually crawl up in my lap and he'll sit with me for a little while. He's got a basketball goal in his room that he loves to go play. And when he turns 5 or 6, like we'll start getting him in some leagues. The one of the best leagues around here. Don't you know? People make the mistake of going and playing too early, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't develop skills. They don't develop. They just go play, and they don't really work on their game. Like the first thing we're going to do, that I'm going to do from my standpoint with James, is when he's old enough, we're going to go to Coach Herzer's first shot.
Right.
I don't know if you know
Oh
Andy or
yeah, yeah,
not,
yeah.
but
I
but
know him.
but Andy does a great job at teaching skills and teaching youth early. And then after that, we'll just kind of see where it goes. The biggest thing, if you're wanting to develop your game, if you're wanting to get better, one of the things that happens right now is people play too many games and they don't go and play. They don't go and work on their skills enough. They just want to go play.
Right.
And you got to understand, in a 45-minute skill development session, you're going to get up 150, 200 shots, and you're going to work on your game. Everybody wants to go play AAU and they want to go play games. Well, in that AAU game, if you play a lot, if you're the best player on that team, you're going to get up maybe 15 shots in that game. And yeah, it's great to go make game decisions and it's great to get put in game situations. But at the end of the day, how much have you really worked on your skill
Right.
playing all that time compared to going and actually getting with your parents, getting with a coach, and just working on your skill?
Right.
That's what I think gets lost out on. And
Okay.
so that would be my biggest advice, is work on your skill early, and then you've got, you're going to have 4 years of high school, 3 years of middle school, and then a couple of years of rec ball early to play.
Right.
But until about third, James isn't going to play. He's not going to play on a team. He's not going to play in a like a city league or anything like that until he's in at least third or fourth grade,
Okay.
because it's just, anything before that to me is too early.
Right.
And and
Okay.
and I argue with people all the time. They go, well, if you don't play, you're going to be behind. Well, like, you'll be okay. Like at some point you'll be okay.
Right.
If you can play, you can play.
You can play him. Okay. Well, that was great. Man, I know we could probably talk forever. I know I didn't even get to half the stuff I really want to talk to you about, because, your position is a very important position, because you do handle a lot of our youth and a lot of our kids, and you've seen a lot, and I know there's a lot more that you could tell us, but time is just not going to permit us to do that. So maybe we can get you back in the 11th hour hut and just come in, just chill with us and talk a little bit more about sports and our youth.
Man, I'll come back whenever you want me to, Mike. You
I
just let me
appreciate
know.
it. I appreciate it, Coach. Hey, well, this your boy, Pastor Mike. This is 11th hour. Remember, go make movements, not just moments. So we just encourage you to go out there and make sure you make the right decisions. I appreciate Coach being here. You got to give me one of them hoodies right there, man, so I can represent, on my off day. You know what I'm saying? I'm just putting that little plug out there. That's just kind of what we do.
Hey, I got to be careful giving you stuff. You still got a kid. You got a kid at Stewart's Creek. Like, that can be looked on
Hey
poorly.
man, listen, that's my alma mater, man. I don't care what they think about it, Stewart's Creek. You know what I'm saying? I gotta represent, So hey, remember to check us out on all our social media pages, man, and just hit us up anytime you have anything. Hey, it's your boy Pastor Mike, and I'm out. Peace.